Well, hello everyone. My name is Joel Bunch, and I am a librarian in the reference department here, and just want to say thank you for coming to our Get Hired series. Um, this is our weekly program for finding work, making career transitions, or just sharpening up job skills in the age of COVID. And today we are going to be um, talking about Excel, and I am excited to do this class. I actually, before I changed careers and became a librarian, worked in higher ed, and I used Excel all day, every day, and got to be pretty good at the things I needed to do with it, and just wanted to share some things that I learned with you all today. This class is going to be geared to more of a beginner level. If you'd like to go through the examples with me in real time, you're more than welcome to. Um, don't be frustrated with yourself though if you're not able to do that. Some of them I might go through a little quicker depending on how much time we have. This class will be recorded, so you can always go back and just rewatch the video if there's something that didn't make sense the first pass. Fortunately, I'm probably not going to have time to troubleshoot each thing as we go. If you would like, we also offer personal consultations. You can set up a consultation with myself or any of the other reference librarians, and we'd be happy to just do a one-on-one Zoom meeting where you can ask whatever questions you'd like to ask, and we can work through examples together in real time, if that's something you're interested in. So, quick little introduction to Excel. If you're unfamiliar, it is a spreadsheet, kind of a software program. It's a Microsoft program, and it's used to store, organize, and manipulate various types of data. You can do all sorts of different things in it, but don't let that overwhelm you. You really only need to know just enough to do your job with Excel. If you're able to do that with just a few different skills that you're really good at, great. You want to learn more advanced things, pivot tables, different stuff like that, awesome. Totally do that. But you don't have to be able to do lots of different things in Excel. You can have a very basic level of knowledge and still be able to get jobs that require Excel experience. So just keep that in mind. It can be overwhelming, all the different things that Excel is capable of. It's a very powerful program. So didn't want you to get overwhelmed with that. Before we start looking at examples, though, I do want to say in the reminder email, you have the example files. You also have a keyboard shortcut handout, and then there are also some links for some of the online classes that the library gives access to, lynda.com and Gale classes. Those are options for further research. And like I said a second ago, we offer the consultations, and then also we have several books in our collection, and that call number is in the email as well. If you're watching this video at a later date, you can email me at jbunch@faylib.org. That's faylib.org. Again, that's jbunch@faylib.org. I'd be happy to send you those files. So let's see if there's anything else I need to cover before we start looking at examples. Oh, I did want to say, certain jobs, I know for a fact that if you're applying for jobs at the University of Arkansas, for example, that require you to do extensive work in Excel or maybe Microsoft Word, they will require you to take a competency test. If you are applying for one of those jobs, you will have to achieve a certain grade to be able to continue the application process. So I would encourage you to practice in however way makes sense for you, whether it's using these examples that I've included, or if it's finding, there are free practice tests for different things. They may not be exactly what you're going to see at the University of Arkansas, but there are free practice tests that you can find online. So let's go ahead and if I can get you to open up your Excel file that was in the reminder email, it's going to be titled Get Hired-Excel. And just want to make a quick distinction that Get Hired-Excel, that is a workbook. If you'll look, we're on the budget tab here. This is a worksheet. So you may hear those terms interchangeably, but they are not the same thing. So you have workbooks and worksheets, and we are in the budget worksheet of the Get Hired-Excel workbook. So first things first, this is just a personal budget, and you see here we've got the income section, and then we have expenses. And then at the bottom, we have a balance. So the first thing I want to talk about is just inputting data in a worksheet. We currently have the cell C2. The column is C, row is 2. So you see the little green box. That means the cell has been selected. We have selected C2, and I am going to write the word February. I just typed it in there. I could have done the same thing with numbers, but that's just how you add data to a cell. I'm going to use an autofill function to continue adding all my months. You could type them in by hand if you wanted to, but to save you time, if you'll notice, at the bottom of the little green box is a chunkier green box, and when I hover over it, you'll notice that my cursor changes to this little plus sign. If you click on that and drag it to the right, you'll notice that it autofills the rest of the months. It knows that you've got February here, so Excel is smart enough to know that, oh, I bet they want March to go next to it, and then April to go after that. So quickly, we were able to input all of that data by using the autofill function. And we're going to do that same thing with a formula. So you'll notice we have our salary and our other income for the entire year, and we need a total for those. So we're going to look at the Autosum function, or the sum function rather. And it's just one of the rudimentary functions in Excel that you can use to add the data within individual cells together, to get a sum. So we are going to add January salary and other income together. A couple of different ways to do this. Easiest way is probably to go up here to the right. This is our ribbon here, all these different options up here. We are in the home section. So I'm going to click on Autosum, and you will notice that it has drawn this little box with this little dotted line. So when you see a dotted line, you should think that it is whatever's happening, it's in process. It hasn't completed any task, but it's thinking about it. And it's waiting on you to tell it, yeah, go ahead. Or, you know what, I'm going to change my mind. But right now it's in process. So let's look at this area right here where it actually says the formula. We've got our equal sign, and then in capital letters we have sum, which tells us what kind of formula. is in process. And then within the parentheses, we have B4 colon B5. These are the cells that are going to be, in this specific case, are going to be added together. But regardless of whatever formula you have chosen, inside the parentheses is going to be the cells that are going to be affected. These are the cells that you're using as your inputs. So these are just two cells. We've got the colon here, which is for a range of cells, but really we could have done the same thing. I'm going to show you. So this is our answer. This is 4,000 plus 5,000, of course. So that's our total income for January. We could have done the same thing. I'm just going to type in here. I'm going to get rid of our colon. I'm going to add a plus sign. So now it treats these as individual cells, which they are, but beforehand I was treating them as a range. Now we're adding two specific things by using a plus sign. It's the same answer. The reason I wanted to show you that, let's say that you were looking at a range of not 2 cells, but maybe 200 cells. You're not going to do B4 plus B5 plus and then keep doing that 200 times. It's just not worth it. It'd take you forever. So that is why I know in equations, you may be more familiar with the plus sign than colon, but just when you see a colon, it just means a range. But it's still essentially adding them together because you're using the sum function. So that's all about that. The same way we did the months, we're going to do that now with our answer, our total income for January. We're going to click on that, and you'll notice there's that little stubby green box. We're going to click on it, hold it down, and drag it to the right as far as we would like. I'm going to do the whole year. And there you go. It just auto-filled that formula that we used in the total for January. It just applied that across the range that we decided. So if I was going really quickly and I wasn't talking, obviously, that we could have done that very, very quickly if you were, if you knew what you wanted to do. Those are just ways to save a lot of time. So we're going to do the similar thing for expenses. We need to know the total. So we could hit Autosum here. I'm going to go ahead and just write it out by hand. Sometimes I feel like it's good to know what the different shortcuts are actually doing when you click on them. I could have just clicked Autosum, but by typing it in, it kind of reinforces that in my mind so that I have an understanding. So if something were to break, it would be easier for me to troubleshoot. That's why I do this. So I'm going to hand type in my range, which is going to be B9 colon B15, and then I'm going to close my parentheses. So I've got my equal sign, I've got my formula, and then I've got my parentheses, and then I have my range within the parentheses. I hit enter when I'm done, and there is my answer. And that is the sum of that entire thing. And just like we did earlier, I am going to apply that across this entire range. And now you'll see I've got my total expenses for each month. Now, under balance, I'm going to click on this to see what the formula is. This says that it is taking, oh, that's weird. I'm going to click on this because then it'll show me my range in a way that's easier for me to kind of look at a glance than just looking at the little cells in the formula line. When I clicked on it, it showed me that it's actually taking all of my expenses and then adding the total in. I don't know why. That's not what we want. For our balance, we want to take our total income for the month and subtract out our total expenses. So our total income, of course, is going to be B6. And then instead of doing a colon, I'm going to do a minus sign. And I'm going to do the total expenses Okay, so now I've got my total income and I'm subtracting out my total expenses. Now, I know the formula says sum. I get it. This trips some folks up. We're using the sum formula, but we're actually subtracting something from something else. It's kind of counterintuitive, but it's essentially it's taking, you could think of it this way, it's taking both of them and adding them together. One of them happens to be a negative number, the B16. So that's why it's coming out of that 4,500. Now it's a little, I've helped people with this before, and sometimes that takes a little for folks to get over, but that is what we wanted. We wanted our income to have our expenses taken out of it. So that is this number here, this 2,080. Now I'm going to do the same thing I did a few times before, and there is our balance for the entire year. So this was just, just an introductory example, just to get you used to adding data to a spreadsheet and using some of the intro level functions. Before we move on, I'm just going to click on a blank cell, and I want to go up here to Autosum. And you see this little drop down button right next to Autosum? I'm going to click on that because I want you to see this thing, more functions. This is a good little, if you're new to Excel, this is a good little menu that will show you all sorts of different formulas, and it'll tell you what they are and what they do. This category is most recently used, but I'm going to go ahead and you could hit all, and it'll give you all the formulas that Excel has. Most of these you will never use. I meant to say that earlier. To use everything Excel is capable of, I don't know what kind of job you would have to have, but the work would be super varied, just because Excel covers so much ground. So if you have a function, you're having trouble making it work, or you're looking for a specific function, this menu could be very, very helpful, because up here you'll see that it says type a brief description of what you want, and we'll show you which function or formula might be a good fit. So you click on one of these, and it'll say more or less what it does. And let's say you wanted to use one of these. I'm going to go back to one that I actually am familiar with. Let's say you wanted to use an average. So you click OK, and it kind of walks you through how to use it. So again, that's just up here next to Autosum, this little drop-down menu. And this is also where it keeps, the max and the min, the average. So just something to keep in mind if you're brand new to Excel and you're just trying to get comfortable with different things. Also, I wanted to show you, if you have a group of numbers, and all I did was I clicked on one of these and just dragged my cursor so it select all of them. I'd like us to look at the bottom here. Anytime you highlight a group of numbers, cells that have data in them, it's going to give you at the bottom the average, the count, 8 cells, and then the sum. So if you need to look at it at a glance as you're working, you can just glance on down there and it'll do it for you. If you want to show those values in a formula on your worksheet, you can do that too. But if you just want to know and you don't want to go through all the work of actually showing it on your worksheet, you can just glance down here. So now that we've gone through one example, I'd like us to change gears for just a moment. And I am actually going to unshare my screen just so, no, not, okay. No big deal. Anyway, I'd just like us to take a look at the keyboard shortcuts. I'm going to go through those very briefly. This was the Word file that you all received in your reminder email. So the first First one is just Control A. And before I show you how to do that, these shortcuts require you to hold down the Control key, excuse me, and then tap once the letter key to the right. So for this first one, it says Control A. I'm just holding down Control, and then with another finger, I'm tapping A once. I'm going to go ahead and select other income, and then when I hit Control A, excuse me, it selects that entire group. It stops when it gets to a group of cells that are all blank. So you'll notice row 7 doesn't have anything in it, so that's why it stopped at that selection. It included cell A2 just because all of these others had data, and it wanted to keep it as an even area, if that makes sense. But again, if we were to select A10 and we hit Control A, it would give us this whole little block selected. If we wanted to select the entire worksheet, we would go up to this little triangle at the top left, and that would give us, that would select all the data in the worksheet. So if you'll look on down a little ways, you'll see one that says Control C to copy. So let's say down here with this little plus sign, this adds a new worksheet. So I'm going to tap that once, and here's us a new worksheet. I'm going to go back to our budget worksheet, and we've already got this whole worksheet selected. I'm going to hold down Control, tap C, and you'll notice that dotted line is back. So these cells are in process, and they're currently in the clipboard. So it hasn't done anything with them yet. Well, I mean, it's copied them, but it hasn't like placed them anywhere. It's waiting for us to tell it what to do. So we're going to go to this new worksheet. We're going to tap on A1, and we are going to hold down Control and then tap V. And then it's pasted. Control V is paste, Control C is copy, and Control Z, which is towards the bottom, is undo, which the button for that is up here, and this button, of course, is redo, but the hotkey for that, or the keyboard shortcut, is Control plus Z, very useful. And you'll notice I just undid our action, and that dotted line is still there. This data is still copied. It's still in the clipboard, waiting for us to put it somewhere. If you changed your mind, you decided, you know what, I don't want to move this data, I want to leave it where it is. If you hit escape, that you see the dotted line went away. Hitting escape when you have something in process takes it out of process. So for instance, this was on the clipboard waiting for us to copy it somewhere. Now it's not. So our clipboard is clear. Now let's say you wanted to cut. So that's Control X. By the way, if you're not familiar, you can right click and get to these options the same way instead of using the keyboard shortcuts. I just wanted to show you the shortcuts just because they can save a lot of time instead of hunting and pecking through different menus. I would encourage you to know where to find them in a specific menu, but I find these shortcuts to be very helpful. So that's why I'm including them here. So we have I just did Control X, which is cut, and obviously you can see this is in process. We're going to go back to our blank worksheet, and I'm going to select A1 again. Now, let me cover that real quickly. The reason I'm choosing A1, excuse me, instead of choosing any of these other cells is because if I do, and I try to paste it, it's going to give me this error. The reason is we've selected this entire worksheet, and the worksheet starts at cell A1. So it wants to put that data in a completely similar location. same size, same place, all that stuff. So to do that, I have to choose A1. If I was only moving 2 cells, I could put those 2 cells wherever I wanted because I have enough space. It doesn't matter where I start. But since I'm moving the entire worksheet, I need to start in the only place that's large enough for me to put a whole worksheet, which is the very first cell in a worksheet. So when I do Control V, yeah, sorry. Let me just start over. And we're going to cut. Oh, that's okay. So that removed everything from this worksheet. And Excel was like, that error message is also to tell you when you're doing something that, you know, is a big deal. It's like, hey, are you sure you want to do this? This is a lot of information. That's why I did that. So I'm going to hit Control Z, which undid it anyway. I'm going to right click on our blank worksheet and I'm just going to delete it. And it's going to say, are you sure you want to do that? Yes, I'm sure. Okay. I want to move on to our next example. This is going to be to do subtotals. So this example that I'm going to show you, I'm actually going to show you a few different things, but this is for t-shirts. Let's say you're in charge of a nonprofit or any kind of organization and you've been tasked with ordering t-shirts for all the folks that are interested in your organization. So we've got a list of names. Do they want a t-shirt? Do they not want a t-shirt? And then corresponding size. Now, this is a short list. It's only, 15 people long. You could eyeball this and just, okay, I'll quickly find out how many larges, whatever. Let's say you had 500 people in your organization. You're not going to eyeball it. You need a quick way to organize your data and give you subtotals so you know, okay, how many larges do I need, how many smalls, etc. The best way to do that is you've already collected your data, so the first thing to do the best way to do is with a subtotal. So to start this process, you have to organize your information in a way where all of your like data is grouped together. So all your larges are touching each other, all your mediums are adjacent to one another, etc. So right now, they're not in any kind of order. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to select our data. So I just went up to the little triangle we talked about and it selected everything in this worksheet. And before I do anything else, I want to go down here. So you see it says sub raw data, and then it says sub play and then sub final. So anytime I'm working in a big data set and I'm going to be fiddling with it and doing different things with it, especially if I want to keep a clean set of data, just in case, let's say I screw something up and I screwed up so bad I can't really figure out what I did wrong and I just need to start from scratch again. If I take my if I take my raw data and I copy it using my Control C and then I put it in my play tab because I'm playing around with it, I can fiddle with all the information. I've got my play tab and I can leave my raw data safely where it is. That way, if I need to start from scratch, no big deal. That has saved, it saved a lot of time, days of work. So if you're working in the data set and you need to play around with it, something that's really good to keep in mind, just to help yourself. So we're going to work in the play tab. So we've got our data here, we're going to select it, and now we're going to organize it in a way where all of our sizes are grouped together. So in our ribbon, and we're in the home section here, we are going to go to sort and filter. It's towards the right. And you'll notice when you hover over these different options, they give you this little synopsis that pops up that tells you what it is and what you can use it for. So I am going to click on it. I'm going to choose custom sort, and you'll notice if you, so we know that A, B, and C are columns. If you click on column to sort it, it'll say column A, column B, column C. Good? No, not good. Because let's say you sorted it this way, and let's say you sorted it A to Z as it says here, and you're sorting it from the values that are in the cell. You could sort it based, if they were different colors, you could sort it that way, or different fonts or whatever. We're going to do cell values because we care about the data within the cell. If we were sorting by t-shirt size and you put column C, the cell C1 with the word size in it would be jumbled up into the data. It would treat that just like the same way it would treat all the other cells. We don't want that. We want to click on this little box that says my data has headers. Now when you go in there, it'll say what we've titled our different columns. Anytime you're working in a data set and you're trying to sort it and organize it, and you see column A, column B, column C, pause and just make sure that before you do that, you really mean to do that, because it's gonna take it all. So we're gonna click on size here, and when I hit OK, it has grouped all of our sizes together. So now we can look at it and it's a lot cleaner. Now, again, this is a small data set, so we could leave it here if we wanted to and just easily say, okay, I need 3 larges, I need 4 mediums, la-di-da. Again, you might be working with a huge data set. That's not gonna work. So you need to go one step further, and that's what we're about to do now, and we are going to subtotal. So subtotal is actually not in our home ribbon. If we go up here where it says data, click on that, it changes the ribbon to show different options. And now if you go to the far right, you'll see subtotal. This is what we're looking for. So I'm gonna select it, and it is gonna give me this message. So this message is fine, and I could hit OK if I wanted to, and it would do what I want it to do, which is it would give me my subtotal menu. But I want to go back because I want to show you something. I personally don't like seeing these kind of things. They just slow me down, especially if I know what I'm trying to do. And anyway, if you are a person that is bothered when you get these pop-ups, or you just, you want to figure out how you can avoid it, I'll tell you why we're getting this. There is nothing to tell Excel that name, t-shirt size, and t-shirt question mark and size are any different than the rest of the data here. So if we were to just do something real simple and just change the formatting to make them bold, now when we hit subtotal, it goes straight to the menu. We don't get that little message. It's not really an error message. It's just like, are you sure? So anyway, maybe that doesn't bother you. You can just hit OK, go right on to this menu. Maybe it does. All you need to do, change the formatting on your headers here, and it'll go away. So now we're in the subtotal menu. So this is where we tell it what we're trying to subtotal and what kind of function. Now we're taking subtotals in data that's words. It's not numbers. So by using this count function, it's going to tell us how many of a like group we have. If you were subtotaling numbers, you wouldn't use count because it would just tell you how many numbers you have. If you want the sum or the average, you would have to come in here and tell it to do so. But for our example, count function works just fine. And we're going to change. So at the top it says, do we want a subtotal at each change in the name column? No, we're not interested in that. We want to know the subtotals of the sizes. So we're going to click sizes, We've told it we want it to count the number of different sizes that are like sizes, and then we want that subtotal to fall underneath each one. So underneath all of our larges, it's going to give us a subtotal. Underneath the mediums, likewise. Now, the bottom here, we've got different options. We can replace current subtotals. It's not really an issue, but I always leave that checked. Page break, you don't really need that because I mean it's just going to put your subtotals underneath each group, so that's fine. Summary below data, so that's just going to be like I'll show you when we get there. We could uncheck this, but I'm going to leave it checked. I'll show you what it means here in just a second. So I'm going to hit OK. All right, so now double click in between these two to auto format so you can read. It says large count, medium count. So if we had chosen sum function instead of count, it would say large sum, medium sum. We didn't do that because these are words, and the sum function, it's made for numbers, so you would just get an error message. But that last thing I was talking about, the summary sum, is this thing where it says grand count, which isn't really useful to us, but I wanted to leave it in there just so you can see what it means. Now, it counted all of our, I don't want a t-shirt. And you know, obviously that's not super helpful, but I mean, you didn't want to leave those blank. You wanted to put something so it'll have something to count in there, even though it's obviously it's not an orderable number. It's not a size. So anyway, you have your larges, your extra larges, you have all your sizes subtotaled. There you go. Are we done? Well, kind of. I don't think this is, let's say you are presenting this to a decision maker. I don't think this is very clean looking. You'll notice you've got this 1, 2, and 3, and these are different levels. You can collapse these down. If I hit 2, it's going to take things a lot cleaner. And if I type that 3, it'll pop it out again. If I hit 1, it'll take everything away except for the grand count, which isn't useful. So I'm going to hit 2 again. So this is much cleaner. So I am going to select this, and I'm going to hit Control-C to copy, and I'm going to go to the sub-final, and I'm going to go up to A1, and I'm going to Control-V, and there you go. Now you'll notice it has, it's kept things in this format, so you can still pop things out. Let's say you don't want to do that. Let's say you just want the words and the numbers. You don't want all of this hidden data. The data is still there. It's just collapsed down. So you'll see how it skips from 1 to 5 to 10 to 16, all that. So I'm going to hit Control-Z to get us back to clean. We're going to go back to our Play tab. So you'll see the dotted line there. I'm going to hit Escape so it's off of the clipboard. And now I am going to select any cell within this little group, doesn't matter which one. And now I'm going to do something that's actually not on your keyboard shortcuts. If I hit Control and then G, so Control plus the G key, I get this special little go-to menu. At the bottom it says Special. I want to click on that. Now it gives me more options. These are more options for me to copy. So I'm going to copy only the visible cells here. So I don't care about the stuff that's hidden. I just want that stuff that we can see. Okay, so now when I hit Control-C, we'll notice things are a little different with our clipboard. So now when we go to the sub-final tab in our workbook, and that did not do what I wanted it to do. Yeah. I was trying to get rid of this, but anyway, that's more or less, that's what we were trying to do. You don't have any of the hidden data, you just have your subtotals. Some folks really like it to look a lot cleaner than that. So there you go. That is how you do subtotals. We're about 3/4 the way through our time, so I'm going to move on to our next little example. This is kind of a one step up from beginner kind of function that I used to use a lot. So let's say you're working a job where you get a lot of different information. Maybe it's dates, maybe it's phone numbers here like we've got shown in our example, and you're getting this data from a computer program and it's spitting out kind of chopped up. So you've got your different months, and then you've got your different years, and they're not in the same cell. They're different cells, and you want them to be together. You want the entire month, day, year, or whatever it is to be a single cell. Same with the phone number. Let's say you wanted area code and the full phone number to be grouped together in whatever data set you're working in. There is a formula called concatenate that you can use that'll just do that for you very easily instead of having to retype it in. So I'm going to type it in by hand, and that is equal sign, or type in the word concatenate. We're going to open our parentheses. We want the month to go first, so that's going to be B2, comma, and then we want the year to go second, so that's going to be C2, close parentheses. Hit yeah. Oh, whoops. Sorry, that's going to be A2 and B2. So it told us that we were making a circular reference. What that means, so our formula is in C2. So if we use C2 within our formula, it goes in like a loop because it's trying to use something that doesn't have, your formula is not complete yet, so it hasn't generated an answer in C2, but you're telling it to use C2 to generate that answer. So it's going in a loop and it can't do that. So that's what that error message means. So typically all that means is you've kind of messed up your range and you need to relook at what cells you're using in your formula. Happens. Okay, so A2 and then B2, and then you close your parenthesis, and then there you go. And we are going to autofill because we like working smarter, not harder. And there you go. So same deal for the phone numbers. I'm just going to type in the word, which is CONCATNATE, open my parentheses, and then I'm starting with E2, comma, F2, close my parentheses, and there is our complete phone number instead of it being chopped up. So what I would do when I was dealing with information like this is I would go ahead, use my formula. I would get my my new data, and then I would copy said data, go on to another blank area, and then I would go to paste special here, and all I did was right click to get that menu. And then I would paste it with just the numbers. I don't want just the values. So I don't want the formula. So I want it to just be, so when I click on this, it's got the formula there. Click on that, it's just the value. Why does that matter? Well, now, if I wanted to take this set of data, get something that looks cleaner, and then let's say I want to get rid of all this. Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead, click that column, hit delete. Oh, well, I screwed up my formula now, so I lost all my stuff. Well, not if I re-put it on my worksheet without the formula attached. Now, I can get rid of all this. Right click, just hit delete. And now I've got my clean data. I don't have to worry about that other stuff. I can do the same thing with this stuff. It's a little more work, but it makes it look so much cleaner. And if you're presenting this to a supervisor or a decision maker, they appreciate that. So just something to keep in mind. And once you get comfortable with it, it doesn't take that much extra time. So just something to keep in mind. I've got one more example. Kind of, this is more of an intermediate formula, very powerful formula. I want to introduce it to you if you're not familiar with it. It's called if-then. Basically, in mathematical terms, it's a logic statement. You're saying, well, if we have this condition met, then we want this value to be our output. If we have this input, we want this output. So basically you're saying if this circumstance is true, then I want this value. If it's not true, then I want this value. So our example is for inventory. Let's say that you are the manager of a movie theater concession stand. You've got your different products here. You've got your beginning inventory levels, and then we've got our different days of the week. And let's say let's start with soda. Let's say we sold 50 units of soda on Sunday. I used a negative number because we no longer have those in our inventory. We used them. So now you'll see our total, which I'm clicking on total so you can see it's just a formula that says the sum of our beginning inventory plus whatever happens between Sunday and Saturday. So that could be negative numbers as sales, or it could be positive numbers. Let's say on Monday, we get a shipment of soda. Let's see, we get 200 more units of soda. So that changes our total. So all that's good. That's stuff that we've already kind of covered. Now, you'll notice K, column K, it says good. Now, let's say Wednesday, let's say it's movies used to come out on Wednesday, like in the middle of summer. I think it's like a holiday kind of thing. But let's say we had a movie open on Wednesday and we sold a ton of soda. Let's say we sold 250 units of soda. So that would need to be a negative number. And it got to 100. Okay, fine. Well, Friday is a big popular movie day as well. So we sold, let's say we sold 80 more units of soda. Goodness, Joel Bunch. So that's negative 80 because we sold those units. Okay, you notice it changed. Now it says, oh, you need volume. You need to order more soda. How did that work? So this is our actual formula. This is a if-then formula. As you can see here, we've got our equal sign and then if, because if is the kind of formula that we're using. And we've got our beginning parentheses. And basically what I'm going to read kind of what this says. If our total, which is the value in J6, if our total gets below 100 units, we need to order more volume. If it's above 100 units, we're good. So I am going to undo what I just did because I want you to see me typing in this formula from scratch. So I'm going to go in to column C, or column K, excuse me, and then I'm just going to hit equal sign, if, open parentheses. So now you see underneath it says, okay, now you need to put your logical test. This is where you are telling it what circumstance you're wanting to look at. So for us, we want to know when our total inventory, which is for this, it's going to be J6. And I chose that because it's the total for this row. I'm going to autofill after I finish it. But for right now, we're just looking at J6. And we want to know when our inventory for soda When it's less than, and that's what this little arrow means, the J6, when the J6 value, the total value for soda is less than 100 units, that's our logical test. When it drops below or when it goes above that, that level, which the level is something that I set, I decided 100, could be whatever you want it to be. But if that logical test is met, if it is true, if it is less than 100, then I want this value to be in my output in K6. I want K6 to say the following, and this can be whatever I want it to be. It could be need volume, which is what I'm going to put. It could be reorder, or whatever word you want to use. You just put it in parentheses, and you put a comma, because now it wants you to tell it, okay, well, that's great. Well, what do you want me to say if that logical test isn't met? If that logical test is false, if the value in J6 doesn't, if it's more than 100, it would be a false statement. So if it's false, what do you want me to say? Well, okay, if we have more than 100 units, we don't need to do anything. We need to sell units, but we don't need to reorder. So I'm just going to say good. And again, this could be whatever you want it to be. You decide. So I close my parentheses and I hit enter, and there it is. Right now it's good. Until it drops below 100 units, it's going to stay that way. Once it gets below that, as you saw earlier, it's going to say needs volume. So that's just a simple example. You could make that more complex if you wanted to, a lot of room with that. But this is just kind of an entry look at using an if-then statement. So I'm going to go ahead and see. I'm going to stop sharing. There we go. Okay, so that's pretty much all the examples that I had prepared for today. Again, this is kind of an intro class. We can talk about all sorts of other complex things if you'd like to in a consult, or if you want to email me, happy to do that. Again, we're going to be having more Get Hired sessions. There'll be one every week for the next good while. Just check our calendar, which is going to be on the library website, faylib.org. My name is Joel Bunch. This video file is being recorded, so it will be available if you'd like to look at it later. And just thanks again for watching.